Counsel.
Morning, Justice Msaneke.
Yes, good morning.
Yes.
And dumelang le lona botlhe bagaetsho dumelang.
Justice Msaneke, the next witness we have managed to secure, who has also been requested by one of the parties that we need to avail somebody else from the CCRC that is in Cullinan in Pretoria. And there is Daphne Ndlovu, who is here to speak on the matters which were referred to Cullinan Center.
Very well, you may proceed.
Yeah. Can I request that she be, the oath be administered for her as well?
Yes. Good morning. Buas Limilele Fime. What language are you going to use today?
English and
English.
Sepedi.
Very well. I would like you to put your full names on record, please.
My name is Matlodi Daphne Ndlovu.
Matlodi Daphne Ndlovu.
Ndlovu.
You're about to take the oath, and you have an option to take an affirmation. The conventional oath ends up with "so help me God." An affirmation does not. Which one do you choose to use?
Conventional oath.
Very well. Do you swear that the evidence you are about Do you swear that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth? And if so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
I swear that the evidence that I'm going to give today is the truth and the only truth. So help me God.
Thank you. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Justice Msaneke. Ms. Ndlovu, where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed under the Department of Health at Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center as
How-
a social worker.
As a social worker?
Yes.
How long have you been employed there?
I started working there on the 1st of December 2013.
2013.
Yes.
Okay. As a social worker, what do your duties entails?
The duties that entails is the admission of the patients to the institution from outside, whether it's from other institutions, and some are from home. And also to facilitate the process of discharge of the patients from the institution, home, or to other facilities.
Yes. Without any further waste of time, it is common cause that your center had received certain patients from live Esidimeni centers during the course of 2016 and 2016 and 2017.
Yes.
Is that so?
Yes.
And there is a document which has been handed in, marked as Exhibit C. It's a spreadsheet, and the one referred to, that is the one dated 19 April 2017. It's a report for the, okay, it's been referred to, Justice Msaneke, as Annexure ELAH9, CCRC report around transferring of patients from LE.
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes, Counsel.
What is that report?
The whole report entails the movement of patients from Life Esidimeni Randfontein and Waverley to CCRC by the multidisciplinary team of CCRC. And it also entails the death statistics of CCRC Anchor and Siabadinga, as Anchor and Siabadinga was housed at Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center.
9, that is 9.
Yes. And whose report is that? Is that your facilities report?
Yes,
Okay. So are you comfortable in speaking on it?
yes.
Then I see that the date is 19 April 2017. Is that the date it was prepared, or is that the date it was presented?
The 19th of April, it was the day that this report was written.
It was written.
Yes.
And let's go to the second page there.
Wait, I have a bit of confusion here. ELAH9 is something else, is it? Do you have the correct? We have to get those exhibit numbers correct for people who are going to read the, what is it? Is it ELAH 8 or 9?
On the, that is
It's a
on the,
mistake.
on this list of arbitration exhibits, it's.
I'm told it's 9.
It's
Must have
9.
been is it a schedule? Is it a?
No, it's not a schedule, a report. It's a report.
Just make sure these things, documents are properly numbered, please, so that we can have, always refer to the same thing, save time.
The schedule is ELH 11.
Yes, ELAH 9 would be
The
a report to Dr. Ramokgopa, and the subject would be Kalinin Care and Rehabilitation Center.
That's correct.
Is that the one?
That's
Very
correct.
well, thank you. Proceed.
Let's go to the second page of that document.
Well, let's get it qualified. Who prepared the document?
It was myself and nursing department deputy manager.
When was it compiled?
This report was written on the 19th because Dr. Ramokgopa has requested the report, but the spreadsheet was compiled like each and every time when we came back from Life Esidimeni to collect the patients.
And by 19th April, you mean 2017?
No, the 19th April 2017, that's where this report was compiled to Dr. Ramokgopa. But the spreadsheet,
That is ELH 11, the spreadsheet.
Yes. Yes.
the spreadsheet was compiled according to the dates that the patients were fetched from Life Esidimeni.
I follow. Okay, proceed, Council.
Yes. And then we're on the second page there.
Yes, Council?
Yeah. I see there's a reference to patients admitted on minimum 2 to 6 months and so on. Underneath there's legal compliance for admission and so on. Then under which there is admission criteria at CCRC. Can you take us through that admission criteria at CCRC?
Okay. According to the report, admission criteria of Kalinin Care and Rehabilitation Center, we admit a patient from 3 years to 21. Then the patient's diagnosis has to be severe and profound intellectual impairment. Our length of stay in the institution is a minimum stay of 2 to 6 months, medium stay 6 to 12 months, and chronic is 12 months to 3 years.
And in these types of patients you had received from Life Esidimeni, to which category do they fit?
Some of them, they were falling under our criteria, but some not.
Some not.
Yes.
And to what extent did they not fall within your criteria?
That one, Council, I'm unable to answer it because according to the initial agreement from the institution, CEO, Ms. Nyatlo, informed us there's going to be a team, multidisciplinary team from Cullinan to Life Esidimeni to go and select the patients according to the criteria of our institution. But that was never happened.
That
I
never-
think maybe that was the reason why we did receive the patients that were not falling under our criteria. But maybe this one, the CEO of Cullinan will give a better explanation.
Okay. And to the extent that some of these patients did not,
The team was meant to do what at Life Esidimeni?
According to the initial agreement, the team was meant to go and select the patients according to CCRC criteria, Cullinan Care
Yes.
and Rehabilitation Center admission criteria. But
Yes.
that was never happened.
I see, thank you.
and according to the number of the patients which you had received from the Life Esidimeni centers, and how many of these patients did not fall within your admission criteria?
Oh, that one, Council, we didn't check. We didn't check. Maybe nursing department is the one who checked, but I was not aware of how many of the mental health care users are not fitting our criteria.
Yes. And in that is under legal compliance for admission, the second sentence there, there's a reference that this implies that assisted mental health care users may be admitted from provincial district or district health facilities or subject to prior permission of a designated official in the Gauteng Department of Health. What does that mean?
Sure. Okay, according to my understanding about this statement, it's Cullinan is also admitting patients from hospitals, but when it says the provincial, we admitting the patients around Gauteng, not outside Gauteng. Our jurisdiction is only Gauteng.
In Gauteng?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
But with the patients that we have received from from Life Esidimeni, some of them are not within our boundary.
Yes. And then further down that page, there's an admission procedure which goes over to the third page. That is, can you take us through what admission procedure you had followed at Cullinan Center in relation to the admission procedure of these patients from LE Esidimeni? No, from Life Esidimeni centers.
Okay, as this criteria stipulate with the admissions of our patients from home and other facilities, but with Life Esidimeni patients, the patients came to the institution, or we fetched the patients with a Mental Health Care Act Form 11, of which is a transfer. It's a transfer form that we use under Mental Health Care Act.
Yes. And what are these forms?
These forms?
Yes.
Okay, Mental Health Care Act Form 4 is the form that is filled in by the family or the person who is applying for a patient in Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center.
Yes.
It's one form. And Form 5 is two of them. The form has to be completed by a doctor or other health practitioner, maybe OT or yes, OT, maybe OT or nursing, yes. And Mental Health Care Form 4 is the form that we used to attach in our forms. It's a recommendation from the head of establishment. And Form 11 is a transfer form if a patient is being transferred. But if a patient is from home, we only use Form 4, 2 Form 5s, and 1 Form 7. Then we submit our forms to Mental Health Review Board.
And these patients you took from Life Esidimeni, which category did they fit? Were they transferred?
It was indeed a transfer,
It was a transfer?
yes.
Okay. And did all this, were all these forms filled in according to the requirements for their transfer?
Yes, according to my understanding, we didn't experience any patient that doesn't have a Form 4 in his or her file, Council.
Okay. And were these patients assisted, did these patients require assisted care treatment and rehabilitation?
Which,
Or all of them, which you transferred from Life Esidimeni to your center?
may you please
Let
come
me
again,
take you.
Judge?
Let me take you to at the top there, on page 3, the second bullet point. You say application for assisted care, treatment, and rehabilitation services may be done by a next of kin, spouse, partner, associate, parent, or guardian of a mental health care user and a healthcare provider. Do you see that?
Okay, Council, as I've already mentioned that the patients from Life Esidimeni
Yes.
came only with one form, of which is a Form 11, a transfer form.
Yeah.
None of the above were in our forms, were in our files.
Why is that so? Is it because they were not required or what?
It was a transfer. If it is a transfer, we only require this. This one's it's an additional information for us. But if we're transferring patients, the only form that we look at is a transfer form, of which is Form 11.
And what do we fill into this transfer form?
In this transfer form, it has the information of the name of the patient, where the patient is coming from and where the patient is going, and underneath there is a signature of head of establishment.
That is from LE.
Yes.
Okay.
So with the transfer, excuse me, you don't need to complete forms 4, 5, and 7.
No, with a transfer, we don't complete them. If the form, if we take a patient with a Form 4, then it means the above forms have been filled already from where the patient is coming from. It's just an additional information for us.
Well, did these patients come then with the information required by Form 4? For instance, under oath by a caregiver or significant other? Do they have like information of their family or caregiver or significant another? Do they bring along information completed by mental health care practitioners? Do they bring to you a form completed by the head of the health establishment besides Form 11?
Some of the files had this information, of which some of them had the information, but in regarding the Form 4, some of the information of the families were not indicated.
Well, take it step by step. Did they bring along any files or bad letters from their institution, from Life Esidimeni?
We did receive files of the patients, Judge.
And did those files have the information required by Forms 4, 5, and 7?
Some of the files had the information, of which some didn't have the information.
Let me proceed.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can maybe give an example in regard to Form 4.
Yes.
If a patient maybe was admitted in Charlotte Mateke, then when the patient is gonna fall under Mental Health Care Act, of which the patient maybe is gonna be transferred to a psych hospital or an institution, there were not information about families, some of them. If if the person who is applying for a person to an institution doesn't have the information of the family, then that person has to use his or her own information to apply for the patient to an institution.
Okay.
That is why I'm saying some of them had the information, some didn't have.
Okay. Then let me refer you to page 4 at the top there. The first sentence. It says, assisted mental health care users will be periodically reviewed in terms of Section 30 of the Mental Health Care Act. That is in brackets, 6 months after commencement of care, treatment, and rehabilitation of services, and every 12 months thereafter. Will this information also be part of the transfer documents?
Yes.
And did you get this information as well from when you transferred them?
Some files did have the information about when was the last periodical report reviewed. Some did not have.
And from your knowledge, what is the importance of this periodical review of mentally, that is mental health care users, for mental health care users?
Okay. In our institution, after receiving a patient from home or from an institution, after 6 months, the patient has to be reviewed. The multidisciplinary team has to sit down, the social worker, medical doctor, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and one nursing staff to discuss about the patient. Then there's a certain form that we use to fill in its section, its Mental Health Care Act 13A. Then we fill in the form, we submit the form to Mental Health Review Board, and Mental Health Review Board give us feedback.
And for some of them, they did not have that information. Okay. And what is the...
What does some mean?
Not
Is it
all-
half and half? Is it a third? Is it... You have to give us an idea what some had and others did not. What does that mean?
I'm trying to say not all of them did have the forms.
Well,
Not all of them.
I'm trying to ask you to describe better for us to understand. Let's start off with, did the majority have the required information? Now there's more than half. I'll ask a few more questions after that.
That one, Judge, if I can answer it, I'll be lying.
No, we've long agreed we're not going to lie, right? Right at the beginning of the hearing, we agreed to that. But let's get back to your assessment. Did half of them have the beautifully set out requirements of admission in your report? Or didn't they? Was it a third of them who didn't comply? Half, 3/4?
Let me bind myself by saying half, because the reason I'm saying half, Judge, is that we do have the dates of when did we go and fetch the mental health care users at Randfontein and Waverley. And the other patients that were admitted in Cullinan were brought to our institution by Life Esidimeni staff.
So you, from Cullinan, went to Waverley and Randfontein, and you physically fetched the patients? In other words, moved them from Waverley and Randfontein to Cullinan?
Yes, Judge.
What number of patients was that? rough and ready?
Plus minus 40, plus minus 45 patients were brought to the institution.
How did you bring them?
Were brought by Life Esidimeni
Oh, they were
staff
brought.
to the institution.
And how many did you go and fetch? From Kalinin go and fetch?
I didn't add the number, Judge, but I can just tell you that on the 9th of May 2016, we went to, sorry, on the 10th of May 2016, we went to Randfontein. The initial agreement from the CEO and the person who were supposed to give us patients, it was we going to take 10 patients from Waverley to the institution. But that one didn't work. When we arrived at Randfontein, we were told to take 26 patients. The reason being, we came with a bigger transport.
What kind of transport was it?
It was a bus, a 27-seater bus.
And the patients that you move on that day are the ones appearing on page 4 of your report, are they?
Yes, Judge.
Patients yeah, okay. Council.
And again, on the 12th of May 2016, we went to Waverley to fetch 24 males. It's on page 7.
On page 7?
Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dove.
Okay.
This review, just to move off this point, this review, periodical review of patients, would you not require this information to assess the level of fitness of the patient for purpose of deciding whether to transfer or not to transfer?
This one is the one that we do after admission.
After admission?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And the one
But
that
I can say during this process of Life Esidimeni, we didn't do any periodicals to the Mental Health Review Board.
you did not.
No periodicals was done last year.
Why?
It was hectic. It was very hectic.
So,
What does hectic mean?
With the fact that we were going up and down, going to fetch the patients, discharging some patients to the NGO. Sometimes when you come back to the institution, patients are sick, being taken to the hospital. Someone has to check the file and inform the family. It was indeed very hectic last year. That is why we didn't, that one I can acknowledge.
By
we
hectic,
didn't.
you mean you were so busy
Yes, yes,
because of the
Judge.
transfers that you could not follow your normal procedures?
Yes.
Now let's check what procedures you didn't follow. Was the transfer accompanied by a formal assessment report from a medical practitioner or psychiatrist or neurologist or an occupational therapist or social worker?
I can only account for a space of a social worker just because I said I am a social worker.
Did you assess each of these patients that came to Kalinin?
Not all of them, Judge, but some were being assessed by checking the family contact details. by calling and informing family that the patients are being admitted in Cullinan, but it was only for those whom contact details of the family were in the files or were received.
The original question was, you said many procedures you normally followed were not followed because it was hectic. And I wanted you to identify the procedures you did not follow because it was hectic.
The one of submitting periodicals to the Mental Health Review Board is the one that we didn't do in the institution.
Did the files have scripts? In other words, prescriptions for the patients?
Yes, Judge. And we were also given 7 days supply medication.
What was not done? During the time when it was hectic, what is it that you could not accomplish in terms of the prescribed procedure?
It's the one for reviewing the periodical.
Any other?
Not that I can.
Well, you said half of the patients did not have their records with them. What did you do with them?
The ones that did not have records.
Yes?
Which records, Judge? I said in my department as a social worker, the files of the patients who didn't have the contact details of the families, that's the patients that families were not informed that the patients are being admitted in Cullinan. But for those whom we received the contact details, we did inform the family that the patients are now placed in Cullinan.
Those where you didn't have family contact details, did you have any other information for those patients?
Yes, we did have the physical addresses. Then some didn't have any contact details, any physical address. And we tried our best to trace by using their ID numbers with Home Affairs, Department of Home Affairs. Some we were successful, some we were not successful, just because the ID applications were made in Life Esidimeni by the staff members.
Council.
Okay, thank you. On these periodic reviews, which you say it was hectic, and as a consequence of which you could not do it, the review requires you to make recommendations regarding the plans for the further care, treatment, and rehabilitation. Is that so?
Sorry,
The
Council?
periodic review requires you to draw a report on each of the patients. Is that so? Are you still with me?
Yes.
And in that report, you must state the capacity of the mental health care user to express themselves or himself or herself on the need for care, treatment, and rehabilitation services. Is that so?
Yes, Council.
And it also requires you to state whether there are other cares, treatment, rehabilitation services that they may require.
Yes, Council.
Further, that for you to make recommendations regarding the further plans in relation to this care, treatment, and rehabilitation services that they may require in the future. Is that so?
Yes, Council.
And this you did not do because it was hectic.
Yes, Council.
So, what you had been busy doing is admission, discharge, and so on of patients from life as demand. Is that so?
Yes, Councillor.
Okay, good. So let's then get to conclude the other part which you had already started.
Of admissions.
Yeah, the patients admitted from that is from Life Esidimeni on page 4, Renfontaine in May 2016, that is on 10 May 2016. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that is the list of the number of patients, and it goes up to 26 on page 5. Yes.
Yes, Councillor.
And what I want to emphasize, that is what I want you to state for the record, is what you refer to there, the last paragraph on page 5, which says that the CEO, Ms. Matsiriso Nyatlo, instructed the team to fetch 10 MHCUs from early in Renfontaine, but on arrival, the team met Ms. Salome Mashile and Frides Sinelo from the Mental Health Directorate at Central Office, who wanted to know what mode of transport they had arrived with to fetch the MHCUs. Then they were told that it was a 27-seater bus. Then Ms. Salome contacted Dr. Manamela, informing her that the CCRC team should take 27 users instead of the 10. The CEO of CCRC was also called by her and refused to take more than 10. So your plan was to come with 10 patients,
Yes.
and we ended up coming with 26.
27. 26, Judge, sorry.
On instruction of this Salome you referred to. And why was your plan to take 10 instead of more than that? Would it be because your capacity would allow you to take 10 or not?
No, our capacity allowed us to take more.
Why the 10?
Okay, the 10, it was for the patients to adjust in the institution, to adapt. Then thereafter we can go and fetch others.
Yes.
Yes, that was the plan. Just for the patients to adjust. Then the second, because we were going twice a week.
Yeah.
Then we assess the patients in the institution after taking them from Waverley, 10 of them, it will be enough for us. Then the other day, then we can go and take 10 again.
So if you take more than 10, like the 26 which you ended up taking, that will not allow you to assist them to adjust to the new environment.
26, it was a big number. 26, it was indeed a big number for us.
So from what you say, so it would be correct that these patients would not have adjusted maybe some weeks after you took them into your center.
That is why I'm saying the process of removing the patient, it was very hectic. Because with the 10, we knew that we're going to follow the right procedure, checking everything of the patients. Then later on, we can go and take again.
Okay.
And with the thing of space in the institution, just to check, because we didn't know as whether we're going to get 6 females and 4 males, then just to open space in the ward and put them in the relevant wards, because we do have frail ward and the mobile wards and the little ones ward, the peds ward.
So from what you say, that this move in that large number of 26 patients at one go was not at all to the benefit of these patients?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, thank you. Then, in the second paragraph, you say the MHCUs came with their patients' files which contained some of the information but lacked medical history. What does that mean? What medical history do you
Where
refer
are
to?
we?
On
Council?
page 6.
Page 6. Which paragraph?
The second paragraph on top.
Okay, all right, Council.
You said some of them lacked medical history. Are you there?
Yes.
What are you referring to by that?
The medical history with this one, I think I'm not the relevant person to answer. Because this is, it's a medical, it's something that has to do with nursing or the doctor. I cannot answer for this one.
Who would answer to this?
A nursing manager,
And who is that?
Jenny Manaka.
And under that sentence, there's a sentence which says some of the patients came with their identity documents too, and which would imply that some did not have identity documents. Is that correct?
True that, Council.
And how many of these did not have their identity documents?
We didn't count, but I can say 70% had ID books.
I know you say that you're not competent to talk about medical history records that were lacking, but you wrote this report, isn't it?
Yes.
And you looked at these files, did you? Though you're a social worker, but you looked at the files, did you?
Yes, Judge.
Did they have medical history reports? I'm not asking you to interpret the reports. I want to know whether there were medical reports in the files.
Medical reports of stipulating the diagnosis of the patients, some did have.
And others did not have.
Yes, Judge.
Are you able to give us an estimate of those that had and those that did not?
Hence, I've already mentioned that some of the patients came into the institution brought by Life Esidimeni staff. I can say 60% didn't have medical history.
Council?
Yes. And in the last sentence there, you make reference to the fact that that is the eight highlighted MHCUs in the list above were subsequently discharged to NGO on the 23rd of June 2016, as instructed by Dr. Manemela. The purpose, therefore, was to create space for other MHCU to be sent to CRCC, so she said.
Yes, Judge. Yes,
Is that so?
Council.
So 8 of them were sacrificed to make space for these extra patients that you had received.
Yes.
Well, whilst we're there, you have again very professionally set out the requirements for a discharge on page 4.
Yes, Judge.
Thank you for that. Were these requirements followed when the 8 patients were discharged? They were actually transferred, isn't it? Well, discharged to NGO.
Yes, the patients that the 8 patients that we discharged to Anchor NGO, the mental health care form that we used, it was Form 3. It is our discharge form, not a transfer, but a discharge form.
Yes, but you see, you tell us in your report, but all of this you did on the instructions of Dr. Manamela
Yes, and our CEO,
and your CEO.
yes.
Is that the normal procedure for discharging patients? That they must go away to make room for other patients?
I can say it is not the normal way of discharging a patient, because if a patient is being discharged from from the institution, it means the patient can adjust where he is going. So just because this was it was like forcefully to create a space for the patients.
Was that desirable from your experience as social worker in a
No,
mental
Judge.
health care facility? Was it desirable to forcibly transfer patients in order to make space for those coming from life Esidimeni?
With this one, Judge, as a social worker, I was not having, it was not something that somebody is asking you. It was an instruction that somebody has to follow.
I understand that, and thank you for saying that, but was it desirable to remove these patients forcibly, in your words, in order to make space for others who are to come? Or do you have to follow these discharge procedures where you make all the assessments that you list in your report before a discharge?
I don't get the question well.
I understand you saying it's not me, they forced me. I understand that. I'm not getting at you yet. I just want to know procedurally, is this the correct way of discharging a mentally ill patient?
It is not, Judge. It was not the correct way of discharging patients, Judge. That one I can acknowledge.
And you at CRC at the time, what did you know about Anchor NGO? In other words, did you know where your patients were being discharged to?
Anchor and Siabadinga, these two NGO were housed in the premises of Kalinen Care and Rehabilitation Center. And the manager of Anchor was introduced to me on the 23rd of June, 2016. That was the day where the patients were supposed to go to be discharged to Anchor. But as a team, as a team of CCRC, multidisciplinary team, we went to the facility to check if whether the facility will be suitable to admit the patient. With bedding, it was a well-prepared thing. It was good. And with their kitchen, it was also good. But the main important thing that I've seen that was not user-friendly for the patients, it was the staff. There was no professionalness, there was no social worker, there was no doctor who assessed the patients on arrival from CCRC.
And the doctor, the nurse, the professional staff surely were more important than a good bedding, isn't it?
Yes, Judge.
Counsel,
Thank you. And despite that, you carried the instruction to transfer, to discharge this
The patients,
to
yes,
Anchor House.
they were only caregivers. Caregivers are the ones who were receiving the patients.
And did you bring this up to the person who instructed you, specifically Dr. Manamela?
I was not directly communicating with Dr. Manamela. The instructions that we followed, it was from our CEO as an instruction from Dr. Manamela, I think.
Dr. Manamela instructed your CEO
Yes,
that you should discharge the patients.
yes, as it is stipulated in the report.
Okay. And was your CEO aware of the conditions at NGO as you state them, that they did not have a doctor, professional nurse to assess these patients?
Everything was communicated with the CEO, like feedback was given to the CEO.
Thank you.
what about the families of the patients? Were they informed that these patients will be discharged?
The patients that did have the contact details of the families, yes, they were indeed informed about the discharge of the patient from CCRC to Anchor.
And those who did not have contact details, were their families informed?
No,
How did you choose the patients highlighted in the report? The report tells us that the highlighted, or patients whose names are highlighted, are the ones which were discharged. And I see, how did you select each of these patients to be the ones who must give way to other patients from life Esidimeni?
the 8 highlighted one, Judge, they are not the only ones who were discharged. We discharged many of them to Anchor. It's not only this 8.
Oh, you discharged more than 8?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with the 8. How did you identify them?
The patient were being identified according to, we went to the wards and checked the patients who are mobile, who are, the patients who are not totally dependent from a staff, the ones that are mobile, who can maybe eat on themselves, who can bath on themselves. The criteria that was used was targeted on them because they were not fragile.
So it was not a clinical assessment that led to their selection. It was the team, the multidisciplinary team, looking at them and say, they're not bedridden, they are mobile, they're partially they're independent, and they are the ones to be moved to Anchor.
Yes, Judge.
Yeah. Then on 12 May, you refer to on your report, page 6. Do you see that? That's the move from Waverley to your center. There's a number of patients you record from 1 to 24 or until page 7.
Yes. Council?
Would I be correct that you followed the same process? You were instructed, you admitted more than you could at a certain point in time, and you moved about 9 of them, which are highlighted, in order to make space for new entrants. Is that what you did as well there?
Definitely, Council.
And in the next move was on 17 May 2016 from Waverley again. Are you there?
Yes, Council.
And what was the process here?
It was the same process every time when we go there and fetch the patients. The same process happened.
And you also similarly had to make way for a number of patients, specifically for this day. There were 4 in number on page 9 at the top.
Yes,
Similarly,
Council.
you discharged these patients to Anchor House.
Yes, Council.
Then the next discharge was, the next intake was on 19 May from Waverley again of 19 patients.
Yes, Council.
And for this intake, you discharged 4 patients in order to make space for the new intake.
Yes, Council.
Again, that is for Renfontaine on the 24th of May. The same process was followed.
Yes, Council.
In all these instances, you use a bus.
Yes, a 27-seater bus.
And in all these instances, some records were present and others were not.
Yes, Judge.
And the one on the 24th, see, there's an entry for the 26th at the bottom of page 11. Is that from Renfontaine as well?
Yes. It was 3 females from Randfontein.
And you had to make way or discharge 8 patients in order to make space for your new intake.
Yes, Council.
If you had not discharged some patients to make way for others, would Cullinan have had enough space for all the transferred patients? In other words, simply, was it a necessity that you discharged some in order to admit others?
Yes, it was a necessity because we were not having space to accommodate the others. Otherwise, some would have sleep on the floor. But just for creation of space, we used the 2 NGOs to assist us.
Now, what numbers went to Anchor Life? I mean, did they have the space to take on all these patients so discharged without a doctor, a professional nurse, a social worker, in short, professional staff? Did they have the space to take the new patients?
Yes.
Why were they on your premises in Cullinan? By they, I mean Anchor Life NGO.
Siyabadinga and Anchor for them to be in the institution, Judge.
I'm sorry, I said Anchor Life. I apologize.
For Anchor to be in the institution, I cannot answer for that. Maybe the CEO of Kalinen will give a better explanation. But regarding to Siabadinga, we were informed on the 8th of January 2016 that there will be an NGO in the premises. We were informed by our CEO. And weekly meetings were held in order to prepare together with the NGO for this, for the preparedness of the space of the patients. So initially, we were informed that the NGO that will be in the institution, it will be Love Disciples. Then after some times, then it changed to Siabadinga.
What did the CEO say? Why was it necessary to have an NGO on premises of the province?
That one, Judge, I'm not the relevant person to answer. The CEO will answer for it.
No, I think you might be. I'm asking you what the CEO said to you about the reason for housing an NGO on state premises.
That one, again, Judge, I think I cannot answer for it, but the challenge that we had, it was according to our criteria. Most of the patients have exceeded their stay in the institution. So if the patient has reached the ceiling, then we discharge the patient to NGOs around Gauteng if the patient is from Gauteng. So according to the CEO, she said to me, Daphne, just because we are struggling to get NGOs that can cater for our intellectual disability patient, it's better we have NGO that can assist us in discharging our patient. But for it to be in the institution, I don't know how did it come. But to be honest, we were struggling to get facilities that can take our mental ill patient after discharge.
The part of your facility, CRC, which was used by Siabadinga and Enka, was it formerly part of the Kalinen Rehabilitation Center?
Yes, it was. Enka was using an active ward of Kalinen. But after renovating the other ward, the patients that were at Enka, at the spaces that occupied by Enka, were removed and placed in a renovated ward.
Why didn't CRC simply continue to use these facilities, which also would have given the patients the professional care that your team was providing?
Judge. That one, Judge, I don't know how to answer it. I can say in Kalinen Care and Rehabilitation Center, our designated capacity, it was 150. So during this life Esidimeni process, we had more than 150 patients. That's the reason why we had to discharge to NGOs.
Council?
Yes. And these two institutions, you had stated that you were informed on 8 January. Which year is that? 2016?
2016, Council.
And were you informed about the level of experience of these NGOs? How many years have they been in this industry?
With the first NGO, the Love Disciples, we were introduced that the people are the priest they are the priest. Ne? Then after being introduced to Siabadinga,
Yeah.
we were told that Siabadinga is an existing organization from Ekangala, I think, from Ekangala.
Yes.
Yeah, they were catering for elderly people there. So it seems as if the
And
organization
were
was
you informed whether
active.
they were licensed to take care of these patients or not?
With the license, it seems as if it was something that is on process.
It was not yet finalized at the time. And a decision had already been made that patients will be referred to them.
Yes.
And you were also not informed that one of them did not have a license.
No, we were not informed about that.
Okay. And on page 12 of your report, you make reference to patients admitted from Life Esidimeni, Randfontein, and Waverley in June 2016 that were brought by LE personnel. These were not brought into your center by you. You did not fetch these patients.
Yes, Council.
And there were 38 in number.
Yes, Council.
Yeah. And in relation to what you had already testified to, at the top of page 14, you say Dr. Manamela sent a correspondence to the institution with information that 30 MHCUs are to be sent for admission at CCRC. Instead, 38 MHCUs were brought from LE Randfontein and Waverley with an ambulance and a bus from the Gauteng EMS.
Yes, Council.
So, when this instruction was given to you, you had not assessed whether these patients meet with the requirements of your institutions or not, but the instruction had already been issued to you.
Yes, Council.
And you had to carry out this instruction.
Yes, Council.
And you indeed carried it out.
Yes, Council.
But didn't somebody, you or your head, your CO, tell Dr. Manamela that you don't have the space to take on $38 more people, patients?
That is the
And
reason.
that you could do this only by sacrificing patients you already have.
Yes, that is the reason why some of the patients were discharged on the 23rd. Most of the patients were discharged on the 23rd from our institution to Anchor, some to Siabadinga. I think one or two to Siabadinga. Because the patients that were sent to the institution, if you look at the frail patient, you cannot say, you cannot compromise a frail patient by a mobile patient. So we took the mobile one to the NGO and sacrifice space for those ones who are bedridden and fragile.
Did Dr. Manabel understand that as she instructs you to take the number that you set out on page 12 and 13, in effect, you'll have to sacrifice 38 other patients who must give way, who appear not to be frail, to give way for the new ones from Life Esidimeni. Did she know this, that in fact that's what you will have to, you had done, sacrificed others for the new ones?
According to CEO Ms. Nyatlo, when she gives us feedback, it seems as if each and everything that was happening in the institutions, there was communication between her and Dr. Manamela. Because she was also indeed worried about the large number of patients that we are admitting.
I know we're going to get there, but you know that these patients that you have described as mobile and less vulnerable died in large numbers at Enka and at Siabadinga. That you know now, isn't it?
Yes, I know, Judge.
That all the people that you moved out in these circumstances met their death the minute they were no longer under your care. You know that.
I know that, Judge.
And at that time, didn't your CEO realize that this might be, from what she said to you, that this might be the consequences? That those who now look like they are on their feet might die if they are moved to an environment where there was no professional nurse, professional social worker, professional occupational therapist, professional doctor, and psychiatrist. Didn't she realize that?
Judge, because
I'm saying the witness mother tongue. You're looking at me for a long time. Are you about to answer?
Judge, what I can say is that what was happening, we were not like giving justice to our patients, but it was the instructions from above. And the people who were sending patients in large numbers were not even there in our grassroots level just to come and see what is happening in Cullinan.
Do you think if they'd come to see the obligations and duties you actually had with the patients and what you had seen were the conditions at Siabadinga and Enka, they might have changed their instructions?
Minds, yes, yes, Judge.
Personally, you did realize that it was, what was happening held a lot of dangers for the patients. I mean, you as a professional who works for them.
Yes, Judge.
Counsel.
Yes. From the report so far, what we have dealt with, your discharges appears to have been directed to Enka House, that is the Enka NGO, as
Yes,
referred to.
yes, and Siabadinga.
And Siabadinga. Why was that so?
These discharges happened this way, ne? We've created space for 74 patients. That's when we discharged patients, but it was with batches to from CCRC to Siabadinga firstly. Then thereafter, the move of taking patients speed,
Rapidly.
taking patients repeatedly, it was because of the patients that were brought into the institution. The one that we did with from CCRC to Anchor, it was swiftly so, because it was with batches, go in and check if the patients are adjusting well in the institution. But the problem came when we go and fetch the target that was not agreed upon.
And did it not appear to you, as it now appears, that you somehow acted as the reception center for these two NGO, that is Anchor House and Sebadinga? You receive and you discharge to them. You receive and you discharge to them.
Yes, it happened that way, Council.
Why didn't you raise that with your seniors, that
We have raised our concerns as a team, but our CEO was telling us that this is an instruction, let's do the way we are instructed, because I'm also being instructed from above.
so it was impossible for these two NGOs, or why was it impossible for these two NGOs to receive patients directly from the Life Esidimeni centers and not through you?
Some of the patients, let me say, after Anchor was no longer rendering services for the patients in our center,
center.
when we took over, there were some of the patients that were not, that did not pass through us
Oh, I see.
to them. They came straight from Life Esidimeni to Anchor.
Okay, I see. And how many were these, if you had done a head count?
Let me give you the correct figure by checking. Siabadinga,
On
we've
page
dis-
17, I think you talk about that.
Siabadinga, we've discharged 73 patients to Siabadinga. And after,
22.
I've got
it's
it.
page 22.
That was on page 17 of your report.
Page 17. No, page 17 is the grand total of the patients that were admitted straight from Life Esidimeni.
Oh, I
From Siabadinga, we've discharged 73 patients, and to Anchor, it was plus minus 36. But when we took over, the patients from Anchor, there were 46, 47, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I see. I see. Then, just to move off this point, on page 14, you refer to certain patients admitted from Hammanskraal on 25 July and 16 November 2016. Yeah. There was no space created for these patients?
During the admission of these two, on the 25th of July 2016, we didn't discharge anyone to create space for them. We were not having space, but we admitted them in the institution.
Then on 15 patients admitted from Kalafong Academic Hospital on the 25th January 2017, previously from Precious Angels,
Yes,
they came to you as well.
yes.
Were you told why? Were they moved from Precious Angels to Kalafong, then to yourselves?
According to, according to acting CEO Malaza, she said we must prepare the beds for this 21 patients as Precious Angels has been closed down.
Did you come to know why Precious Angels was closed down?
Yes.
What was the reason?
I didn't ask.
Oh. You didn't, I'm sure you didn't understand my first question. My first question was, did you come to know why Precious Angels were closed down?
With the closing down of Precious Angels, it was not explained to us. We were just told that create space for the patients that are coming from Pretoria West and Kalafong as Precious Angels has been closed down.
Did you have the space to take on the new patients from Kalafong?
Yes, we did have space to take them. Because by that time, our number was already, our beds have already increased. The number of admitted patients were already higher, more than 150 that we are designated to admit.
Council?
On page 16, you make reference that some of these patients came with some ailments and they were in poor health and so on. Are these the patients which came from Precious Angels?
These patients, they were not coming straight from Precious Angels. They were coming from Kalafong and Pretoria West Hospital. It seems as if it was the patients that were taken from Precious Angels to these two hospitals.
So their origin is Precious Angel.
That one I can acknowledge.
Oh, I see. And there is one you cannot identify. You refer to Zodwa, Mizodwa Mpe, what Pemvu, and Miriam Yende. What happened of this patient?
In the institution, we've admitted Zodwa Pemvu and Miriam Yende. And these two patients were both discharged to Anchor. From Anchor, they were discharged again to Precious Angels. Then January, when we were admitting again this batch, it seems as if there was a misidentification.
Yes.
Because Zodwa Pemvu came as Miriam Yende from where he was coming from. But when he was going to Anchor,
She was Yende.
yes, she was Zodwa.
But you know, by this time, January 2017, many people had died.
Yes,
Even
Judge.
when you were receiving people from Calafong and Pretoria West, and they were in poor state of health, many of the patients that were at your rehabilitation center before had died.
Yes, Judge.
Were you people aware of that? Did you know that?
Yes, I'm aware, Judge.
And what was the response of your CO and your institution? Many of the people you looked after and discharged, within months they died. What was your response? What was your reaction as an institution? How did you perceive this tragedy? Your duty is to preserve life, and you had patients in your institution, facility. You discharged them against your will, and after they die. Can you describe your response to this?
Judge, it was indeed very painful to hear, like each and every, after 2 days, that one patient has passed on. It was very, very painful for us.
And these are patients you could identify because they'd gone through your hands, isn't it?
Yes, Judge.
Now let's look at this schedule, for instance. I'm sure council will take you there. ELAH 11, that's the number of the exhibit.
Which one, sir?
This schedule is meant to tell us about mental health care users received from Life Esidimeni. In other words, by yourselves. In other words, it's your schedule of what you receive. Look at the destination column. Can you see how often the name anchor appears, for instance, on sheet 1? Can you see that?
Yes, Judge.
You turn it over to the bottom, look at anchor there appearing. And you page sheet after sheet, you'll see anchor there. And indeed, many sheets, you can go through them, you'll see that there's lots of that. And then there are patients whose destination was home. I want you to tell me about that. Those who went to Anchor, we know a lot about them. They died. What about those that appear, for instance, on the schedule from 1 to 38 who were discharged to their homes? Did you come to know what happened to them?
The patients, Judge, that were discharged from our institution to home, it was only this year. Last year, we never had any discharges in the institution, any discharges to home.
So at the critical time, you did not have any discharges to home. If you look at page 4, for instance, of the big schedule, the spreadsheet, so all of those who appear there brought by Life Esidimeni, you can see people were discharged home. Did that happen at your institution?
Yes, Judge.
Why did you discharge them home?
It was through the request of the families.
So these were not on instructions of anybody to have them discharged?
No, we had 57 patients that were discharged in the institution in April and May. But
April and May 2016?
2017, sorry.
2017.
2017.
But that was long after the big transfer of April, May 2016, isn't it?
Yes, Judge.
And long after many, in fact, many patients were dying at the time.
Yes, Judge. And those 57 patients were discharged back to Waverley in Jimiston.
Or so they did not go home, they went back to Waverley.
Yes, Judge.
On whose instructions?
It
Or for what reason?
It was after the task team that was elected by Dr. Motswaledi.
By the minister, right?
Yes, yes.
So this was part of the cleanup process where we see all these people going back to Waverley.
Yes, Judge.
I see. Counsel?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Ndlovu, on page that is on page 20. You make reference to Killenham Care and Rehabilitation Center deaths. That's 2016 to to April 2017.
Page 20 of our...
20 of your report.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still coming to the other schedule. Page 20. Are you there?
Yes.
Is this the full list of the death which occurred at your institution during this time?
From this list was compiled in April, ne?
Yes.
It means it was from 2016 to April 2017, but now the number has increased.
By how much has it increased?
By 5 patients.
5 patients.
Yes.
And when did this occur?
Between 2016 last year and yesterday, if I may say, because there's nothing that I heard from the institution this morning about any death.
Okay. And these are your former life Esidimeni patients?
Not all of them.
Not all of them?
Not all of them.
How many are former life Esidimeni patients?
Of them are former life Esidimeni from CCRC list, because we do have 3
Okay.
subsections.
Okay. Then on page 23, there's a reference to ENCA NGO of Soka, Kenneth, Gumede, Joseph, Tlajwaye, Sizwe, Sitole, Robert, Ratsotso, Charity. Is there anything else you want to share with us in relation to these deaths?
Okay. Soka Kenneth
Yes.
was never admitted to CCRC. It was an admission straight live Esidimeni to Anchor.
Yes.
Gumede also, it was straight from live to Anchor. Tlajwayo passed through Kalinen and discharged to Anchor. Sithole, it was a straight admission to Anchor. Ratsozo passed through Kalinen, then Anchor.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to add something on the other cases. Gumede Joseph is the patient that died last year on the 24th of July 2016 at Anchor. He died at Anchor.
Yes.
And former acting CEO, Mrs. Malaza, instructed me to go and trace the family. In this case, it was an Anchor case, not Kalinen Care and Rehabilitation Center case. As I've alluded that I'm employed at Kalinen Care and Rehabilitation Center. So I intervened in this case due to the instructions from Mrs. Malaza.
What would her interest be in your doing that?
She said just because Anchor doesn't have a social worker and Anchor is housed in Kalinen, will you please assist by tracing the family of this patient? Then I disagreed with her. I said, I'm not employed in Anchor. Then she said, I'm instructing you to do these cases. It was not one case. It was 3 cases. I've requested Mrs. Malaza to give me something written in black and white just because I was crossing the boundaries. Then she said to me, Daphne, do you also want me to request something written in black and white from Dr. Libete and the MEC? That's when I was forced to intervene in these cases. And the other case it's a case of Shama, the case of Isaac Tolwan. I was also instructed to trace the family. And Shama is not housed in our institution. It's somewhere located in Kalinen.
Now, this brings to mind the question about how did you ordinarily deal with people who lost their lives? Let's start at your institution. What is the normal procedure if a patient passed on? How do you deal with that patient's body?
If a patient passed away in Kalinen, the nursing department informs the family if it's during the night or during the weekends. Then if it is during the weekdays, then the information pass my office so that I can check in my file if whether we do have the contact details of the family or the physical address of the family in order for me to go and inform the family about the death of their beloved ones.
And if you don't have those particulars, like 50% of the people from Life Esidimeni, as you told us, how do you deal with that death?
We do have cases of that sort, Judge. we're still having a man that died last year, May or June, if I'm not mistaken. The body is still in the mortuary as we speak right now. Because the patient doesn't have an ID book. We don't have contact details of the families. We don't have physical address of the patient. Then with the others, with the addresses that are given in the file, we've checked. The people that are found in the address doesn't relate or know anything about our patient. So that's the challenge that we are having in the institution.
Do you sometimes have pauper funerals?
During my presence, there was no pauper. No pauper was done in the institution up until now.
You would make sure that you have the details whilst the patient is there. Why didn't you have pauper funerals?
A pauper funeral, Judge, it's not something that somebody can like say, tomorrow we're going to pauper this person. I think we have to exhaust whatever can assist us to trace the family. That is why we're still keeping those bodies in the mortuary. One of the bodies in Bronkhorstspruit, then we have 5 bodies in Mamelodi Hospital.
Dr. Kinoshi told us about 7 corpses that are still unidentified in the mortuary. Is that the same number or just different from what Dr. Kinoshi told us about?
I think the stats is the same.
The same
But
bodies.
the other one, I don't know. Maybe it can be from other facility. But in our institution, we have 1 body in Bronkhorstspruit mortuary and 5 in Mamelodi mortuary.
Are you still looking for family members and in order to deal with those bodies?
Yes, we tried checking with Home Affairs. We tried checking with SASA. What I can say is that we've exhausted whatever source that can assist us in locating the families, but we are not hopeless. We're still going to try and check. Maybe we can have something to assist us in tracing the families.
And why is it so important that you find families for deceased patients?
According to my knowledge, it is good to inform the family, Judge, about the death of their beloved ones. Unlike we quickly take the decision of doing a pauper's funeral, then after sometimes maybe the family can come out. We did have an instance of 1 family that we were looking. We were trying to trace for 10 years, and we didn't find them. But fortunately, the patient was still alive. After the family coming in to visit, to check if whether the patient is still alive, because that was the first question when they arrived in the institution. Is this so and so still alive? Then we said yes. Then they went to the ward and visit the patient. Unfortunately, after 3 weeks, the patient passed on. Then we were lucky just because the family came.
And lastly, we're going to go to tea now. Let me first check, Council, how much more questions do we have?
I just have some few questions on this schedule, but we can go to tea.
I'm not hurrying you. I just want to know, indeed, how many questions, how long you want to be.
I can break with her now before we go to tea.
You can do what now?
I can finish off with her now before we go to tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as you don't finish her off.
Now what?
Okay, very well. I have questions about families, and you can think about that and answer them later after your cross-examination. About the frequency with which family members come and visit their beloved ones, and their involvement in their care and rehabilitation. Think about it. I'll ask it right at the end, just to know how much families care. But it's something that I'll ask towards the end. Counsel, you can go ahead and...
Okay, Judge, I'll be glad to answer that because it is indeed a challenge for us.
Yes, I'll come back to that right at the end, ma'am. Counsel, would you round off your examination? I'd like to take the tea break.
Okay. From your, that is from the evidence you had alluded to that you were instructed by your former acting CEO, Ms. Malaza, to go and look for the family. How did it come about that Anchor House approached Ms. Malaza and not you with this request?
According to my understanding, especially with the case of Tlajwayo,
Yes.
it seems as if Mrs. Malaza and Anchor manager had some meetings about it. Because I only knew about the case when I came back from my 2 weeks leave.
Oh, I see.
I was approached that I should go and trace the family since Anchor doesn't have a social worker and a transport, a vehicle to do home visit.
Okay. Then on the big charts, a big chart, there's a list of names towards the end of the, that is LH11, on the fourth last, from the fourth last page. You refer to a list of discharged MHCUs from CRCC to Siabadinga. Is that a complete list of the names of the patients discharged at 73?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Justice. I don't have anything further for this witness.
We are going to take a tea break. I hope they give you tea too. And we'll be back. I'm sure there will be questions. Let me give an idea what's going to happen. I like doing that for the witness to be a little more relaxed and anticipate. You're going to be asked questions by counsel for a number of families whose beloved one are deceased. Section 27, and followed by Legal Aid South Africa, and followed by yet another counsel is going to ask you about beloved ones who have died, particularly in connection with CRC, Advocate Groenewald. And then you're going to be cross-examined by the state, counsel for the state. And the advocate who asked you questions now will be the last to re-examine, in other words, to ask you questions, the final clarificatory questions after cross-examination. So that's what's going to happen from now on. Okay. We're going to take the tea break, and as I said, wish you well. I hope they give you tea, and we see each other when we come back. We'll agenda.
I don't have to get you an interpreter.